Hi, and welcome to the City Show. I'm your host, John Zimkus. Our first three guests are all people well known to the folks of Lebanon. They are City Manager Scott Brunkham, Fire Chief Ryan Dybczynski, and former Mayor and representing the Citizens for a Safer Lebanon, Amy Brewer. Now, Amy, you are also, perhaps unofficially, the lady about town. If people don't see you at an event going on in town, they definitely see the photographs you've taken on social media of what's going on in town. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Now, Chief, the last time you were here was about 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
And that was the first day you became chief. Now, You lost part of your name. You were battalion chief. Now you're just chief.
Correct.
But your responsibility grew.
Grew tremendously.
Now, is it different being chief than a battalion chief? Can you really tell the pressure's on?
The office is different, and the responsibilities are different. It's definitely more of a personnel management, kind of going back and forth between the three shifts and trying to make one big fire department now instead of just three different fire departments. So, yep, it's a challenge. It's a challenge I'm loving right now, and everyone still likes me, so it's great. And I'm really excited. I'm having a great time. A lot of great support from the city, the department, and the citizens. It's been great.
Now, you told us this 6 weeks ago, but refresh our memory is what makes up the Lebanon Fire Department? How many people, how many stations?
We have roughly 65 personnel that consists of full-timers and part-time. We run 2 stations, which consist of an engine at each station, an ambulance at each station, and then we run approximately 5 to 4 people at each station.
And currently, how is that financed?
We run through a fire levy that is 100% supported by the citizens.
And it's, Scott, it's a 9-point mill fire levy. Is that what it is on property tax?
Correct. It's a 9 mil property tax levy, and the 9 mil levy's been in effect now for this is, I guess, going on our 4th year. So historically, the fire department and our fire, and obviously our EMS operations as well, have been solely reliant on property tax funding to support those services.
Now, the three of you are here to talk about a proposed change in that. Now, it is in some ways, is it an increase? But it's not for some people. It's a renewal, but and it's a reduction in tax for some people. Scott, what kind of hybrid are we coming up with?
Correct. So the city and city council spent many months discussing how best to kind of fund our fire and EMS operations moving forward. And what our residents are going to see on the ballot this November is a fire income tax levy. So what is being proposed is a 0.5% income tax increase. Right now, the city's income tax rate is 1%, which is one of the lowest in Southwest Ohio. So we're proposing to increase that to 1.5%, which is still below average. In addition to that, the proposal is to reduce the property tax levy by 3 mils. So our property owners are going to see an actual tax reduction on their property taxes if this income tax levy is approved.
Now, eventually another millage vote would have to take place on the 6 mills. But then I've also read that anything in excess of what is needed will still go into fire and emergency.
Correct.
So under that, the chance of having a property tax increase decreases because of more money coming in from the income tax. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. So, if the income tax levy is approved this November, City Council's already directed the Warren County Tax Commission to reduce the property tax levy by 3 mils. So that would take it from essentially where it's at now, which is a 9 mil levy, down to a 6 mil levy. We would then, in the spring, have to go back to the voters to renew that lower 6 mil property tax levy. So there are quite a few moving parts, but 100% of the additional revenue that would be generated by the income tax increase is going into fire, EMS, public safety operations.
And that's what it's designated for.
It's designated for. It's in the ballot language. This is 100% to support really transitioning our fire department from this kind of full-time, part-time hybrid model to a full-time department, really in the same manner that our police department is.
Well, Chief, as Scott just mentioned, a full-time department, right? There is a shortage of part-time firefighters.
Correct.
Okay, and so one of the things that this wants to do is have a permanent one in which we always will have a full staff and not reliant on part-time.
Correct.
Tell us how many people might be added and how that will help us.
We're roughly trying to add up to a staffing level of about 13 per day. We run 3 shifts right now. Each shift runs a 24-hour shift, and then they're off for 2 days. So we run on a 3-day rotation. So we'd love to get up to the staffing level of 13-ish personnel a day. That would give us a fully staffed engine, 2 fully staffed engines, 2 fully staffed ambulances, an extra ambulance if need be, shift commanders, lieutenants, and then myself.
Now, when you say there's 3 shifts, that's 2 stations with 3 shifts.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, is there, like everything else, there is a shortage of employees coming in, and the fire departments are feeling that pinch also.
Correct.
And so this would really protect us, because if we don't get that and we have a shortage of part-times, what kind of the dangers might we face?
Training is probably one of the biggest holes that we face in bringing in part-time personnel. We try to train them the best that we can with the full-timers and the training staff that we have, but because people are only here on a part-time basis, there are things that are missed, and if they're here all the time, it's easier to train them on the same things that the full-timers are being trained on, and the message is clear. The policies and procedures across the board are clear. It's just more of a consistent fire department, more of a consistent training level that we're all up to.
And there's a lot of competition between cities and villages for members of the fire department.
Absolutely.
As many of the viewers may know, I work at the Harmon Museum, and last year we had a couple of seminars for the firefighters.
Yep.
Because the vast majority aren't from Warren County.
Correct.
And so it was an attempt to let them know about where they're working and,
we wanted to learn about the city,
saving.
history, the neat architecture is what we talked about, a lot of the neat things that went on in the city and still continue to go on.
Now, Amy, as a Citizens for a Safer Lebanon, why do you feel this necessary to have this levy passed?
Well, it was interesting when City Council and the City Manager were talking about having this on the ballot. They asked me, "Would you be the chair of the fire levy?" And I really believe that it's so important, and one of the very important roles of government is the safety, health, and wellness of our residents. And that should be a top priority, that we provide the best and excellent care for our residents. I'm a little partial, loving this community and serving in office as long as I did. That's always been a top priority and always should be a top priority. And having to figure out how can we fund a department to be the best that it can be, to have a full-time department, take care of our residents, and in some ways not burden some of our senior citizens in terms of property tax. So I feel it's a very smart, innovative, and important step for all of our residents. And so that's why I wanted to be the chair of the levy, to get out there and to market it and to educate the public and to educate our residents as to why this is really needed for our community.
Now, Scott, Amy mentioned not putting too much of a burden on the senior citizens. They will get a break on this. How does that work?
Yeah, so I think as we discuss the different options, being cognizant of the pressure that property tax increases can put on folks on fixed income, our senior citizen community. That really, I think, led the city to go the direction of trying to shift some of the tax funding responsibility for fire and EMS over to the income tax side and reduce the tax burden on the property tax side. So if you're on fixed income, you're not paying city income tax. You are paying property tax if you own property in Lebanon. So obviously, your property taxes are going to go down, but your income tax is not going to go up. So you're going to be voting for a tax reduction through this initiative. And I think that was very important for us. Really, what shifting some of the tax funding responsibility over to the income tax side of things, what that does is shifts some of the responsibility of funding our fire and EMS operations onto non-residents. So the way income tax works in Ohio is you pay income tax in the community that you work in. And Lebanon has over 11,000 folks who don't live in the city but work in the city, and they pay city income tax. Mm-hmm. So instead of the funding of our fire and EMS operations being 100% the responsibility of residents and property owners, this really kind of distributes it a little bit more fairly, because the folks that are working in our community, they are enjoying the services provided by our fire department, and we feel like they should be contributing towards funding that through a portion of the income tax being directed that way. And if I could add, the challenges with the part-time model, and I think Ryan had mentioned, we've seen a 75% reduction in the number of part-time fire and EMS employees that are even available to work for the city. But what that triggers ultimately is if we can't get enough part-time folks to fill these shifts, we have to close one of our fire stations. And, that's a significant reduction in services and one that, we aren't comfortable with and really want to address.
Now, there is a 25% increase in calls in the last 5 years, haven't there been?
Yes.
So, we're getting more active and we're growing. So and the competition for those part-time people. So perhaps the best way, and that's what this is saying, and the best way to deal with that is to eliminate the need for part-timers and make it permanent people.
Yep. We want to hire them and have them stay here and invest in them to be a part of the city.
Now, Scott, there's also interest, dividends, that's not part of income tax.
Correct, right.
Military pay?
No, I don't know. I don't believe. Well, I should probably check with the tax department on that. I don't want to say that for sure.
I read that on one of some of the literature I got. So if it's wrong, it's my fault.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, the income tax, it really is. It is, what it says. It's, when you work or are employed within the city, you currently pay the 1% income tax. And I want to stress, again, 1% is one of the lowest rates in Southwest Ohio. So if you work in Xenia, Centerville, Cincinnati, Dayton, Hamilton, Monroe, Franklin, you're up at around 2% or greater. So what we're asking the voters is to approve the income tax increase to get us to 1.5%, which is still below average. But coupled with that is the 3 mil property tax reduction. And like I said, we think that's a good, fair way. I think everybody recognizes the need and the importance for fire and EMS operations. When you call our police department, you have a full-time patrol officer showing up. I think this community's to the point where it's important to have a full-time fire and EMS personnel. We invest a lot of money in training the part-time folks. And I don't blame them. They're looking for full-time employment somewhere else. And so, we end up investing in training them and getting them familiar with Lebanon, and then they take a full-time job with another department. So we're kind of battling that constant churn. And I think, this will allow us the opportunity to get to a full-time operation and kind of get that stability and make sure that we're providing the level of service to the community that they expect.
Now, Chief, a part-time firefighter, the other time, are they part-time someplace else usually?
Typically. We do have some dedicated part-timers that work here and then another part-time job somewhere else, but we do have the part-timers that work for us and they have a career with a different fire department. So, which creates more challenges where if their fire department needs them to be there on overtime or special duties, they would not be able to work with us, which results in call-offs and some shifts not filled, and then we have to supplement with some overtime, or as Mr. Brunka said, if we have to close a house, that is where we go. Just because of the safety of our men and women, we need to make sure that we're at least staffing the equipment the way that we need to.
I would also think that would be physically and mentally exhausting.
Yes.
Being on two different departments like that. Now, Amy, your committee and the city are having multiple places where this issue will be discussed.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
Yes, we want to make sure that we are really educating and informing our residents about the issue. I've created a Facebook page where we'll be promoting the different meetings, and we have meetings and opportunities morning, noon, and night, early morning till evening, to give everyone an opportunity to be able to come. Obviously, we will post on the page this time here with you as a kind of a beginning point of educating the public, but lots of opportunities, but that will be on our Citizens for a Safer Lebanon Facebook page, where we will promote that, give people plenty of time to be able to attend, being able to call us, being able to email the city manager about that. So we're starting early because we want people with good information so that when they go to the polls in November, that they are making, we believe, and hopefully a great choice for the betterment of our community.
Now, you were mentioning both evening and night. I do know there's a meeting at the Y coming up.
Correct.
And then there's going to be a couple meetings at Fire Station 41. Yep. Okay,
Yes.
I almost said 2. Which would be an attempt to, that's the one on
On Broadway,
Broadway.
right next
Okay.
to the fairgrounds.
So they'll not only have a meeting there, but they'll also get a chance to see the station.
Absolutely.
Which is great, and it's a beautiful facility. But you have a couple of morning ones at the
Coffee Caravan.
Coffee Caravan.
2, I believe,
Yeah.
early in the morning there,
Yeah. So there's at least a half a dozen places.
if not more. Yes.
And I'm sure they will grow too, where people can ask their questions, people can get their the answers. They will find more about this interesting hybrid of income tax and property, and how we can get a safer Lebanon through
Yes.
a more permanent firefighter squad.
And John, if I could just add, we talked a little bit about how this will benefit the senior citizen community. It'll also benefit the folks who already pay, who live in Lebanon, but already pay 1.5% or greater income tax in another city that they work in. So again, under that scenario, they're already paying the 1.5% income tax to the community they work in. We offer a 0.5%, we currently, do a half credit. So they do still owe the city a 0.5% income tax, even if they work outside the city. That 0.5% is going to stay the same. So again, if you're already paying income tax to another city, you're not going to see an income tax increase as part of this levy initiative. You will see your property taxes go down.
Okay, now that's interesting.
Yes.
So it's going from 1 to 1.5, but if you're already paying that 0.5%, nothing changes.
If you're already paying income tax to another city of
yeah.
at least 1.5% or greater, which again is most of our peer communities, then your income tax rate is not going to go up here in Lebanon, but your property taxes are going to go down. And we're able to do that by essentially shifting the tax responsibility over to our non-residents.
Yeah. And we are a bedroom community. People work elsewhere.
Correct.
So this will be beneficial for the city and no change to them. Is there anything else we need to tell the folks about this upcoming levy?
It's extremely important for the city. If you kind of look at service areas and areas where the city needs to continue to move forward, this is a critical decision for our community.
Now, the 9 mil levy we're currently working on, that expires in next year,
Correct.
24. Is it a particular time it expires? It's at the end of the year?
End of the year, correct.
Okay.
Yep. So that's why we're kind of putting this ballot initiative out this year.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the results, we'll have to see, what type of, initiative goes on the ballot next year, whether it's just the reduced 6 mil levy, which we're hopeful that's what will be on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason, if this doesn't pass this year, we're going to have to go back and evaluate what our options are. Obviously, we need to fund our fire and EMS and public safety operations. So we'll at that point have to, take another look at it. But that's kind of why we started early.
Well, Amy, Chief, Mr. Brunka, City Manager Scott, thank you for being with us, and
Thank you.
best of luck on the levy. And we'll be right back in a moment. Welcome back. We've got 3 new guests. We have Sergeant Bob Bird from the Highway Patrol, Assistant Post Commander at the Lebanon Post. We have Ann Brock from the Warren County Safety Coalition. I may have gotten something wrong with
Warren
that.
County Safe Communities.
Safe Communities
Yes.
Coalition. Thank you. And we have Magistrate Paul Revelson. Now, Paul, you have been with the city as a prosecutor for a while, and you're also the solicitor for South Lebanon at one time.
Formerly, yes.
Yes, and but you're also a lawyer here in town, and also a vice president of the First National Bank, as I understand it.
Correct.
Okay, and we're here to discuss stay sober or get pulled over. Is that correct?
Drive sober or get pulled over.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what is this? Is a national program?
Actually, it is. It's a national mobilization. And Sergeant Bird might be able to talk a little bit better about it. But it's basically my role in the safe communities is to just bring awareness to the national mobilization. So we do an event a week prior to them actually being for the national mobilization.
Now, it's supposed to be introduced like August 16th through September 4th, as I understand it. Is that clear across the country? Different areas are doing something about this?
Yes, yes, it is, and it is one of the programs we decided to really dive into to help us really try to curb the problem that we see within the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm. So, what comes with this this awareness? Is there going to be a greater presence on the highways?
Yes, with us, we requested federal overtime money, which is given to us to keep more units on the road at the same time through, if not high visibility, strict enforcement. And we'd like to use both at the same time, actually, but this is one of the programs that we like because at this time you're less reactive, you're more proactive, and we think that is the only way really to attack this issue that we're faced with.
Is it a growing issue?
Oh, it is. I would say based on current political climate and a lot of external issues that people have in the family household now, it causes a lot of issues, and a lot of people are really turning to methods to curb that stress instead of like physical exercise or diet or some other way to get that relief. More people are turning towards pharmaceuticals or even still alcohol.
Now, you mentioned pharmaceuticals. Is there a growing presence of drug-related driving rather than alcohol?
Oh, we'll have way more drug-related arrests than alcohol.
Is that right?
Yes, it is far more. And now we do run across the occasional person that hasn't had their medication regulated yet. You know, they have been prescribed medication. It isn't regulated. They're not sure what's going on with it themselves. You know, those are things we have to take into account. However, if a crash has already occurred, then you know our hand has already been dealt there, and we have to go forward with it. But if it's something that we just come across them and we can use some level of education, then that's great, and that's what we'll do.
Now, Warren County, being located where it is between Dayton and Cincinnati, and having two interstates going through it, that probably increases the problem, I would imagine.
Oh, it's a dynamic that is just consuming at times. We can have incidents pop up on each one at the same time, and that's happened. And we'll have to draw people from other areas to come help clean things up, if I may. And that has been an issue, I think, since this post has started. Is it's just so much, and the population keeps growing. Not only within Warren County, but this area alone. When I came here in 2015, this area was projected to overtake the population in Ohio, and they were taking it from the Cleveland metro area. So and this is all part of the Cincinnati metro area, and by 2018 it was projected to just take over the population in Ohio, and they actually did it in late 2016, early 2017. It's grown that much.
Now, what is the, we all have an idea of what we think a typical impaired driver is driving, but what are the signs that somebody's has an issue with either drugs or alcohol in the vehicle?
As far as physical?
Yeah, I mean, swerving back and forth, speeding, or
it can be something as subtle as just moving around in your lane. You never know how someone is reacting to something until it draws your attention. It doesn't correct itself. Any movement that's outside of the norm and it keeps going, that's what pops our attention to them. And it could be something as being under the speed limit. And they're struggling. So we watch that. We get a reason to talk to them, and then once we start talking to them, then we can assess the problem from there.
A citizen who sees something like that, somebody driving in front of them, should they notify or should they call the highway patrol? Or
absolutely, and we do. We average several calls a day. I would love to give you a number, but I know on my shift alone, there can be close to 100 in a shift of people calling in, and sometimes they're from out of the area, and we get them directed in the right direction, or we'll just tell them to just hang up and call 911 if they're that bad and they don't really know where they're at. So those are options that we have also, but normally we can get people out. But a lot of times these call-ins are accurate and do end up in an arrest.
Now, Ann, there is going to be is it a healthy market coming up
Yes.
this weekend?
Yes.
And part of this program is going to be involved in that.
Yes, it
Tell
is.
us about that.
So it actually is it's our kickoff for the national mobilization, and it is going to take place at the Healthy Living Market this Saturday, and I'm having the Arrive Alive tour come in. This is it's based out of Michigan. They go all over the place with this. But they have a Jeep Liberty that they bring, and they put it basically up on these like electric plates, and the people get into the car and they can drive it just as if you're driving, but the car is not on. And then they put on a set of VR goggles, and so that they simulate being drunk. So you can step on the gas, you can turn the wheel, you can brake, you can do all of those things in the car. So it basically just takes them through a scenario. They go to a party, they come out of the party, they've drank too much, and now they get behind the wheel, and the program then actually just kind of takes it from there. You know, it might be a pedestrian comes out in front, or another car comes out, you know, and they hit the car, or they hit a tree, or, you know, so it's all done through this VR technology.
And the healthy living market is when on Saturday and where?
It's right here in Lebanon, on Mulberry Street from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay. Now, Paul, as a Lebanon magistrate, how is that different from a judge?
The judge is elected by the citizens of Lebanon. So the judge for Lebanon Municipal Court is Martin Hubble. He got elected last January, and he appointed me. So he chooses the magistrate. He appointed me to be the magistrate starting last January. So I've been doing it about a year and a half now.
Now, does he still have court too, and you have court? Or is that what it is?
Yeah, the court for Lebanon Municipal Court is on Monday and Thursday afternoon, so it's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And usually in the afternoons, Monday and Thursdays. I do the civil docket for him on Tuesdays, but also I'm the acting judge for Lebanon Municipal Court, so I'll cover for him in the event that he cannot attend.
Now, your jurisdiction is within the limits of Lebanon solely, right?
In Turtle Creek Township.
Oh, and Turtle Creek Township. I wasn't aware of that. Now, that's a pretty big sized township. That's not a small one.
It goes all the way to the Outlet Mall in Monroe, so we have all the prisons. We have all the jails here. It goes all the way to parts of Middletown, actually. Covers all the way to the Post by them. It's pretty big.
Well, now with, let's see, I do know part of 75 is in Turtle Creek Township. Is any of 71 in Turtle Creek Township?
There's a portion of it towards the exit. You're better at mile markers than I am. I was always really bad at that. So, but north of the South Lebanon exit, going that direction.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So if Sergeant Byrd pulls somebody over and they are within that boundary, that person has a good chance of seeing you. Is that correct?
They have to go into court, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I used to prosecute for that same court for 7 years prior to that. So yeah, it was
okay. So
it was,
when
it
you
was
were
busy.
the
Yeah.
city prosecutor, it would be the same court, but now you're sitting down instead of standing.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. It was, and it just like Sergeant Byrd said. I mean, there was a time period during COVID where we weren't overly busy, but it is a very, very busy court. There's lots and lots of tickets and other crimes that are cited in there. So it's busy. It's been busier the last few years.
Now, have you seen an increase in the impaired driving in court?
I would say there's always been a steady flow. I'd say there's definitely an increase in general caseload. I saw during my last year or so there, and it's just been continually busy. I wish I had stats too. He's probably got some stats with him, but they're all searchable on the Supreme Court website actually. But it's steady flow, if not an increase.
What are the consequences of being found guilty of driving under the influence?
It depends on how many you've had in the past. If your first time OVI offenders, if you're convicted, there's statutory minimums that you have to have for the state of Ohio. There's a fine. Minimum is $375 up to $1,000. You have to attend something called a driver's intervention program, which is a 3-day class where you're not allowed to leave. Usually it's at a hotel, Thursday to Sunday. They teach you, never taken it myself, but they take it. They teach you don't drink and drive. These are the consequences. These are the things that can happen to you. Usually you're going to go on a term of probation, 6 months to a year, and there's an automatic driver's license suspension. That changed several years ago. It used to be 6 months minimum. Now it's a year. So minimum 1 year driver's license suspension.
Now, in your court, do you see people who are impaired driving because of drugs rather than, say, alcohol?
It's both. When heroin has been very, very, I hate to say popular, but it has been a drug of choice for a lot of people over the last 5 or 6 years. I probably saw more of those than anything for drug related. The one thing that I noticed differently was our officers on the street have gotten a lot better at detecting those sort of things. There's special programs that they can take where you can be certified to detect drugs rather than just alcohol. So not only I think has the prevalence increased, but the detection has gotten so much better for some of these officers. So it's really made it a different tool to combat it.
Now, are the consequences different if it's drugs rather than, say, alcohol?
Same.
So could however, you be an additional charge of having drugs on you added onto that then?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. If you were driving impaired and you had drugs on you that were the type that would result in a felony charge, those cases are not disposed of in Lebanon Municipal Court. You have to get potentially transferred to the Warren County Common Pleas Court, which is also located in Lebanon, and it goes from there.
Now, the program Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over, is that a year-round, or is that going to continue for a while, or?
This is just kind of that that time of year where we just kind of try to remind people.
Yeah.
And then we do it again around Christmas time, and then around the Super Bowl. So those are those times where, and July 4th. So those are just kind of those big times that we really try to remind folks to have a plan to get home. You know, I mean, there is no reason anymore to drive. You know, you've got Ubers, you've got Friends, you've got taxis, you've got, I mean, just so many other options available to you. So.
Now, is there anything else we need to tell the folks about this program and about the issue here in our local area of Lebanon and Warren County?
With this program, there's some things here that we've adapted that we continue throughout the year. This isn't the only time of the year that this is important to us. So there is a zero tolerance. And there are issues that the Lebanon court has taken in also that have said this is a mandatory appearance too, such as the speeding. The speeding is a huge issue, car chases, the whole 9 yards. So these are things that we've taken a zero, we will not compromise. The court has seen that also, and they've also made their arrangements. And there's a lot of things now that are mandatory appearance within the court that we cite into court. But one of the biggest is the OVI issue. And those are things that we cannot tolerate. And it's 2023, and it's time for people to start policing themselves also. Actually, that time has actually passed, but I wouldn't mind if they'd actually get on board at this point in time and help us out, especially with all the other things that are coming up in society where we have to deal with these issues, and it takes us away from the road sometimes. So these are things that this is a time where everyone pulls away from what they're doing outside of this, and they kind of engineer, or they make room for manpower issues and they put it towards this. But this is a yearly thing. This is all year for us.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's not a one-time issue. It's a constant issue.
Yeah, out of our 20 fatals in Warren County this year, I know 4 for sure are OVI related, and there are several that are possible waiting on results. One's too many. One is way too many.
And the charges could be multiple depending upon what you do under that condition.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. And to be honest, we're going to charge high. We're going to charge high and see what happens with it, because I mean, you cannot enable that in any way, because it only breeds.
Okay. Well, Sergeant Byrd and Magistrate Revelson, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed today's show and have a safe weekend, and I'll see you next time around town.